Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Time, chunk.
Hey, my found the map! Whoa, do you guys realize what we could do? I don't want to go on any more of your crazy Goonie adventures.
Meet Mikey,
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Brand, Andy,
Shame. Come on, Brad. Slip her the tongue.
That's disgusting. No, I can't even look.
Mouth,
I gotcha. Now get out from behind her. You're ruining the painting. You're ruining my joke.
Stephanie, Data,
Goonie Bango! Oh, guys, isn't that neat?
and Chunk.
Flopped.
They call themselves The Goonies. They've stumbled onto a legend, but they're not alone.
Chunk, I hope that was your stomach.
No. That's the it. Sounds like Kong.
Discover what they uncover.
Rubies and emeralds and diamonds.
The lost map.
Oh, this started the tunnel.
The secret caves.
Hey, Mikey! You can hear me! Run! Run! They're coming after you! Jugglers!
The hidden clues.
Mikey!
The treacherous traps.
Hello, Sheriff. I'm at the Lighthouse Lounge, and I want to report a murder.
Just like that last prank about all those little creatures that multiply when you throw water on them.
Take the oath.
They're here! Somebody's coming!
Join the adventure. As Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Welcome everybody to a special episode of Popped Culture, where this week, we remember Richard Donner, who sadly left us at the age of 91, which is a pretty good innings, I think, in this day and age. So, what an amazing talent. And we thought that the best way to remember this amazing, talented director was by talking about one of his movies. And of all the movies we could have picked, we decided that we want to talk about The Goonies.
Yay!
Goonies are good enough, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So, remembering Richard Donner by talking about one of his most beloved films.
And what a film it is, it's something that captures the imagination, even now to this day. It's such a fun adventure movie with pirates and, the Fratelli family gang, and you have this group of misfits just, going on this wonderful adventure to save their town. It's wonderful.
It's got it's Indiana Jones with a dash of heart and, a dollop of Stephen King coming of age children with slightly less sinister forces at work around them. Although it's not sinister, because that gang is pretty messed up.
They're great. I love them.
Yeah, I think it's also a nod to something that's a bit earlier from, I guess, our generation, and it's things like the Hardy Boys. And I can't remember the other sort of detective type kids.
Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. And I think they even reference the Hardy Boys in it, but there was always that pirate cave or some sort of hidden treasure, and it takes that, but to a spectacular level. And
it's like a supercharged Scooby-Doo almost.
As well. Yeah, Scooby-Doo as well.
Yeah, with a Spielberg touch in it here and there.
I think it's one of those movies that came out in that era where I think a lot of people, when they think about The Goonies, it's a Spielberg film. The way Poltergeist is a Spielberg film. It's not. It's Tobe Hooper, and this is Richard Donner, and it's definitely a Richard Donner film when you watch it. It's that kind of his the way he does action is very him.
Yes.
But he's also able to capture a very kind of magical, dreamlike quality, which is very evident in something like Superman. instead of something like Lethal Weapon. But
Yes.
but he's got range.
He does have range, and you also see it's a wonderful family story as well about these two brothers. You have Mikey and Brand, who are the ones who sort of, I guess, start the journey off from their home to go find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. And I can't speak enough for how good the performances are by Josh Brolin and Sean Astin. You believe that they're brothers. They've got such a wonderful chemistry together as siblings.
Yeah, it's amazing to know that they grew up to be Samwise and Thanos, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
They've come a long way. He was working out back then just to get those giant muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it still holds enough of a childlike view on things, and I think that's where it's got its strength. Is it's coming from the kids' point of view most of the time, and when you see the adults that come around, it's always coming at them from a more this is what adults have to do and be like,
money
and responsibility and things like that. Whereas we're just trying to work ourselves out and be together, and that it keeps that wide-eyed sense of wonder throughout it. And that's what really I find watching it. It encapsulates constantly. Every time I see it, it's like I'm back in my childhood. I fortunately saw it of that age, I guess. And so, yeah, it was a major thing at the time. One of the weird things, though, that I noticed about the film, it was definitely showing that product placement stuff really coming into the fore. It was a bit jarring seeing it again, because I actually watched it again yesterday. So the kids watched it with me, and they enjoyed it immensely. So it shows that it does speak to its audience extremely well.
I think I saw it as a kid, and it got first released on VHS sort of like in the late 90s. And I remember it sort of blew my mind.
Yeah, same here. My parents recorded it from the television when I was a kid, and I watched that VHS tape a lot, and I watched it again recently on a digital format the other day just to refresh my memory on the film, and it still holds up, and it still makes me laugh in all the right places, and it still makes me get all excited in all the action pieces. So it still resonates with me from being very young to even now as an adult.
It's of a time, but it still has that kind of timeless quality as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the music and the clothing is probably the only thing that really kind of ate it.
Yeah.
Probably a bit of the effects too, but not too badly, fortunately.
No.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite character from the posse of kids on this adventure? Everyone, I think, has a favourite character.
Oh, mine's Chunk for sure.
That's Chunk?
Yeah, when he's being threatened with torture and told to spill his guts. That's
and Jake's living for the story, being like, I really like him, Mum.
Yeah. Oh, and the stories it comes out with, and the performance of that, the fact that he's almost screaming, crying, and going through it all, quite long bits of dialogue. It's so effective, and it's so funny that the whole cinema scene of carrying vomit in his pockets into the cinema. It's great.
When he calls the police officer trying to sort of let them know about what's going on, and the policeman doesn't believe him, and it's just like, oh, you mean just like the time when so and so happened, or just or the other time when you did this. He's a bit of a storyteller, that one.
I think I like Mikey. I got that character with the older brother.
Yeah, I really like Mikey as well. He's the one who is wanting to push this the hardest. He's resolute and wanting to save his town, and looking for the rich stuff. He is a lot like One-Eyed Willie in a sense. He's got a knack for creating different sorts of contraptions, like when he opens the gate for Chunk at the beginning of the movie, and how that's reflected in the booby traps that all the kids go through to get to the treasure and to the pirate ship. And he kind of treats One-Eyed Willie with this respect and reverence.
Yeah.
Almost like he's
like Indiana Jones, sort of that respect for the...
Yeah, completely. And I also really love the character of Mouth, too.
Mouth.
He's just such a smart ass. And one of the scenes that I love most in this movie is when he is translating in Spanish to Rosalita, the housekeeper, and he's just feeding her all this bullshit compared to what Mrs. Walsh is instructing him to say. And the best one is when he says, if you don't do a good job, we'll trap you down here for 2 weeks with without food, without drink. And he just does it with this gleeful smile on his face.
Feldman.
Yeah.
At his height there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a really good performance as well by all the characters. And I sometimes find child actors or performances by children can be a little bit grating in films because, they're kids. But everyone was quite focused and did a really good job.
Yeah, and there was also this, and it must be Richard Donner's influence here, the way that they sort of screaming over each other and talking in this hyper way that you actually don't catch some of the things they say sometimes because it's all over each other, but you still get the excitement of what's going on. And
it's a feeling.
Yeah. And that's how kids behave as well. And I love one of the long-running jokes in the movie is when they misunderstand what each other is saying. It's just like, that's what I said.
He's going booby trap, and they're going, what? No, booby trap. He said, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, that's what I said. Or, when Chunk breaks the small statue of David in the living room and he's talking with his mouth full, and to be like, do you think your mum will notice? And he'll be like, of course she'll notice. She notices everything. And he goes, but that's what I said.
Yeah, it's well scripted, and the child actors all outstanding. I don't think there's any weak ones amongst them.
No.
Even I've forgotten the name of the actress who's, I guess the older girl, the cheerleader.
Andy,
yes.
Yeah.
So when she's freaking out in the tunnel and she's suddenly all becoming self-reflective and trying to work out whether she's lived a good enough life already and she's too young to die, and all of that was done so well.
Yeah, and it's fun to sort of see her play off of the character of Steph, her friend, who is a bit more grounded and trying to sort of like get out of it, more sensible. And whenever Andy sort of starts going on about how dreamy Brandon, and she's just like, what are you doing? We need to get out of here.
I love when it gets that kind of like, we have these booby traps and the piano, and that final set pieces with the ship is fantastic.
Yeah, I have to say all the set pieces look really, really good, and the booby traps are clever and they're fun, and yeah. It's
got all of that fun stuff, fun Indiana Jones stuff with collapsing floors and everything that you want.
Yeah, exactly right. And you also sort of see that against, I guess, the ways in which criminals conduct themselves in the present time. So you have these pirates, pirates are criminals of the seas, and they take all this treasure and then they hide and they make all these booby traps. And then you have that contrasted with the Fratellis, who are counterfeiters and a mob family, and how they do things. I just thought that was quite funny to sort of see how those sorts of things carry over.
Much more vicious.
Much more vicious with this, ultra matriarch who, dotes on one son, sort of, I guess, ignores the other, and then imprisons her third.
Yes, the other child.
Yeah, that's right. You have Francis with his hairpiece. Jack, she doesn't like his singing. No one likes his singing. And then you have Sloth, who is just so wonderful. And I really love the relationship that he forms with Chunk. Yeah, it's great.
and I think Sloth has become a pop culture icon in a way.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, and you can also see how much he loves adventure movies himself. I think he's watching on the TV. Was it Captain Blood, the Hollywood film?
Didn't notice that.
But yeah,
it was something adventure. Yeah,
it was an adventure movie. But then he ends up doing the exact same sequence by cutting the sail and getting down to the deck. And I love
the Superman shirt as well.
Oh, that was great. Not just when he rips off the shirt. Yeah. And then you just sort of see the two other guys being like, "Oh, we're in deep shit now, Francis."
Yeah. So, seeing as it's sort of about Richard Donner as well, I'm sort of trying to reflect back on Superman and the influences of that, because I guess Superman would be his other kids' film in some ways as well, because I don't think people would look at Superman when it was released as being necessarily an adult film. So he was still keeping kids in mind in the adventure.
It's certainly like. I think it's one of those films that speaks to adults and children, but I think back in the 70s, I think a superhero comic book movie would have been very much like that's kid stuff.
Yeah, and he seems to have that ability to sort of just leap into that world incredibly well. I'm thinking of in Superman the movie of the montage of Superman growing up, how well that's done, and I've seen. I don't know another 2 versions of that now out. Few. Whatever it is, and none of them seem the same way to you.
I mean, even like what Bryan Singer tried to do in Superman Returns, which was essentially replicate what Dick Donner had done in the original Superman film, and it still feels just half-assed.
Yeah, it's amazing how he manages to pull that out of such a short space of time. Then you move on to Lethal Weapon, and you can see the humor and things that he has at his disposal too in his direction. So
he did all 4 Lethal Weapon films, and I must say it's a franchise that I love. I love Lethal Weapon. I think Die Hard is a better film, but if you go for a series with longevity, the 4 Lethal Weapon movies are far better than the Die Hard franchise.
Well, they're definitely more. They're definitely more consistent. That's
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, and when you think about it, Richard Donner's created these moments in cinema that are replicated quite often.
Yeah.
If you think of the van on the beach in Lethal Weapon, I've seen that in so many things now. I sort of keep forgetting about where it started from, and I don't know why that scene stands out. I guess it's because it's just you're so exposed there. You have some machine gun hit you.
Yeah,
it's
but the bomb on the toilet is like how many things like the Simpsons got from the Lethal Weapon movies alone.
Yeah. So he definitely has had a major impact across cinema in lots of different ways. And
The Omen, let's talk about The Omen for a second.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, The Omen.
Great movie.
It's just after The Exorcist, right? I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So in the wave of the sort of satanic films, and I mean, it's. I don't think it has the impact of The Exorcist, but it's not trying to be. No. It's not trying to be that kind of like really subversive, horrible, icky movie. It's much more kind of a. I know, horror movie with a taste of action to it. I suppose there's a lot more movement and.
Yeah, it's got a really good, how would I say, an oppressive tone that at the end, that's what pays it off, The Omen, because the ending is that little bit traumatic in that.
Yeah, and good doesn't win.
No, it's good doesn't win, and it's the desperation and turnaround of the father, so to speak. So it's got a slightly different oppressive feeling to it, but it's sort of more constant through the film. You get that whole feeling throughout the whole film, whereas The Exorcist is one which just ramps up to the point where you're almost strangling yourself. This is too bad. This is horrible.
I remember when I first saw The Omen, I was terrified of it, and it was so grim at the ending. Yeah, and also the scene where the mother dies. Oh, holy!
I remember the
really gruesome.
The nanny.
Yes, at the party,
traumatized me when I was younger.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Getting a visitor.
my own little Damien. Say hello to the people.
Hello.
He just really wanted to talk about the Goonies, I think. Yeah, we picked the Goonies, but ultimately, I mean, Richard Donner's filmography, we could have talked about any of those movies more prolonged, but I'm sure we'll get there one day. For the meantime, the Goonies is sort of a sampling of kind of all of his little bits and pieces. You've got the really nasty criminals, which I think certainly has a Lethal Weapon flair about it. You've got the kind of magic of the Superman. And you've got this wonderful sort of just mishmash of 80s things that comes together into a perfect little package that I think, the nostalgia dollar at the moment has certainly been leeching off for a long time. I think Stranger Things owes a hell of a lot to the Goonies.
Yeah, that's true. I think every family should watch the Goonies at least once. It's just one of those really fun movies that everyone gets to enjoy. You know, it's good for kids, it's good for adults. There's so much to like about it.
Jace, any final thoughts on the Goonies?
On the Goonies, it's definitely one of those quintessential fun family films. Probably a little bit of humour in there that you might be explaining a few things to kids who can read subtitles. But other than that, it's outstanding in that sense. And it's if you wanted to have a rank of films for sort of kids' adventure, it's certainly on the top of the pile.
Yeah.
The Goonies. Thank you, Richard Donner, and may you travel through the universe wherever you're off to. I don't know how to say that in another way. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Pop Culture, a special episode. I've been Todd.
I'm still Jason.
And I'm still Monica.